Julian Nagelsmann to Manchester United talks are apparently heating up. Julian Nagelsmann climbing to sort of the top of the list, rivaling and potentially taking Michael Carrick's job. We got lots of updates surrounding sort of the manager situation or head coach situation, whatever you want to call them. Specifically, obviously, after losing against Leeds and the performance against Leeds, we need to talk about that as well. But it's quite interesting. There are a couple stories out there coming out surrounding Michael Carrick that I think are obviously quite, just exaggerated and over the top for clicks, presuming the timing after the Leeds performance. But this story seems to have a bit of legs, and, some people felt like Michael Carrick was dead on to get to the job, but it still seems to be fairly open according to the reports. So we're going to get into that. We also have numerous transfer updates surrounding Marcus Rashford, a couple other players as well. We obviously got the news the other day that Harry Maguire has been given the ban that we expected him to get. So he got an extra 1-match ban on top of the matches that he's already out. And obviously we have Alicia getting his red card. I think we are probably going to try and appeal it, but I wouldn't put my hopes on it getting rescinded. So it's going to be a good show. We haven't been live for a while, and we were unable to do, obviously, the Red Devil recap after the Leeds match. So I'm hoping for some of the members to come in and, tell me about the match, because I was actually unable to watch it as well. All I was able to see was like a good 10 minutes of it. I turned it on, saw that we were down 2-0 because I didn't even know what the score was. And then literally within 5 minutes of that, Lisandro then got the red card. And I was like, that's all I needed to see. This is how this game is going, I guess. And I didn't really need to know anything else. I just knew that we clearly did not put in a good performance at home against Leeds. We were down 2-0. I seen some of the things, questionable goals, calls, and decisions and stuff like that. But yeah, so listen, it's going to be a good show. Please make sure you're smashing the like button. It's very important to the channel, to the video. Share with all your friends and family, everybody you ever came in contact with, and get involved in the comments, whether you're watching live or after the show has aired. Get involved in the comments. Very, very important. But, let's just sort of kick off with the manager stuff, because I do have, there's some things that we do need to discuss and talk about, because, from the media standpoint, I think there's a couple stories that are just absolute bullshit and nonsense and, typical media stories that they would put out. So one of them is, and this goes back, to yesterday and the day before, okay? One of the things that's coming out, is that apparently the Manchester United hierarchy has lost some faith in Michael Carrick after that performance and display against Leeds, okay? This was coming from the Disco Murs, saying Manchester United hierarchy now have serious reservations about Michael Carrick, the club's permanent head coach, after the team's recent wobbles. And this is because, obviously, I don't believe we have a win in 3. So it's not really just after. It's not solely because of Leeds. It's probably sort of the last 3 matches. We have sort of listened. We did have a new manager bounce under Carrick. It was a good one for a lengthy period of matches. And, we've sort of gone down a little bit from those highs. I would still think that we are, in a good enough position that we're going to obviously finish in for Champions League football. And, we're still in 3rd, and we can still finish there, and we can easily go and turn this around against Chelsea. We got a big match coming up against Chelsea. But I will say that, I was saying for like a couple weeks, I was concerned about us coming back to play this match against Leeds. It was a really long time off. Okay. Basically about a month. Leeds had a little bit of, they did play against West Ham. They played a really good game against West Ham. And, they were sort of staying in the rhythm, in the motion of playing matches, definitely more than us. I mean, just that game helping them alone. But, we had significant time off. And I was quite worried that we would come back and sort of lose a little bit of, I guess, the momentum, the spark. And, I'm not 100% sure if that's what it was. But, we didn't win the match. And apparently, we didn't play very well. So, I think that that definitely did have an effect, unfortunately. I can't say 100% because I wasn't able to see the match in full, so I can't say, well, yeah, that's definitely 100% what it was, but I was worried, and it does sound like that to me, that's sort of what happened, or something that had an effect for us as well. I don't know the other aspects of the games, in terms of decision making, from the manager standpoint and how the game was managed and all that stuff. But, there was a couple other stories saying, there's a huge concern among the Manchester United hierarchy at the lack of intensity and purpose in the team's display against Leeds, given they had the luxury of 3 weeks to prepare for the game against opponents who had won just once away all season against Wolves. But I would say, listen, okay, I mean, we had 3 weeks to prepare, but were we preparing for 3 weeks? Some of our players were out on international duty, so I don't think we had a full 3 weeks in terms of having the group all together and training and, preparing in that way. Michael Carrick had 3+ weeks. The coaching staff had 3+ weeks, but I don't think we had the whole group together, so I don't know if I buy that 100%. Now, but this is all going to lead into sort of the Nagelsmann thing, because now obviously, there's this Nagelsmann thing, and there's still other managers apparently still in contention for the job. And, this sort of followed up that and said, while Manchester United were always continuing to assess other candidates for the head coach role, despite Michael Carrick's positive impact, that process has gathered pace in recent days with an acknowledgement among the hierarchy that they cannot get the next appointment wrong. United are still assessing candidates, including Luis Enrique, Julian Nagelsmann, Unai Emery, and Oliver Glasner. And Doni Areola is also under consideration, although he is the favorite to take over at Atletico Bilbao. Okay. Joe Bay says, don't fall for it. The club is lying. Don't fall for what? That we're going to get Nagelsmann? What did I miss? Not much, just the intro. How you guys doing? We then got further updates saying on Michael Carrick, Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his team of Manchester United executives are wary of falling into the same sentimental trap as predecessor Ed Woodward, who appointed Ole Gunnar Solskjaer manager on a permanent basis. After a whirlwind start to his interim stint in charge, Solskjaer's appointment was always blighted by his emotional attachment to the club, and there is determination not to repeat that mistake with Carrick. We then also got further updates, and this is where it really goes into Julian Nagelsmann solely. Julian Nagelsmann has been discussed internally at Manchester United for the permanent head coach role. The club have not made any formal contact with him or any other candidate as of now. They then follow this up by saying Julian Nagelsmann's name is heating up internally at Manchester United. While club sources state no direct contact has been made, some sources believe initial conversations have been held with his camp. Nagelsmann is high on the club shortlist, with many higher-ups having a long-term admiration for him. But the World Cup will play a major role in the decision-making. Michael Carrick is also being strongly considered to get the role if he qualifies for the Champions League. That's coming from Sully Talks and somebody called United Patron. Okay. They then also follow that up with Nope, sorry. I think that was the whole thing. I thought there was another bit to it, which I think actually we did get. Hold on, let me just see real quick. I could have swore we got one more update to follow that up right before we went live. We did get one update separately from Graham Bailey saying Julian Nagelsmann camp are actively trying to land the 38-year-old a top Premier League job this summer, informing several clubs of his availability. United, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Manchester City are among those contacted. Don't believe the talk with Nagelsmann. Well, I mean, we don't know if we can't say 100% it's true. We also can't say it's 100% false. We don't actually really know, do we? I mean, we have to take sort of the reports. There are certain journalists that do have some credibility that are reporting these things. Many people, I mean, they don't trust the club. They don't trust Ineos. So they don't trust anything that comes out. They think it's all 100% spin. I don't think it's 100% spin, because I think that's crazy. I think that there's probably a lot of spin in there. But like I always tend to say, we will find out what happens. Because ultimately, at some point, a decision will be made, and it'll either be Carrick or it'll be some other guy here. So we'll get our answer, and we'll find out if it was really all just smoke up our ass. And they were always just going to sort of stick with Carrick. Where's my tin hat? Well, sources go as Sully talks. A lot of it was coming from the Disco Myrrh, really the negative one. The negative ones was coming from the Disco Myrrh, which makes sense, because that's what they kind of are. Fabrizio did give us an update saying that at the moment, I'm not aware of Manchester United negotiating with Areola. If you ask me, would Areola like to be the next United manager this summer or in the future? And I'm told that he would be open to that for sure. Obviously, he would. To go from Bournemouth to Manchester United, you obviously you would do so. And then also Fabrizio, if you want a little bit more credibility, I guess, said even after last night's loss to Leeds, United's feeling remains really positive around Michael Carrick. United are very happy with him, with his attitude, with his tactical decisions, with his approach, and with the relationship he has with the players. So, I mean, that's what I was sort of going to hit on. I mean, the updates from the Disco Myrrh are quite, in my opinion, definitely 100% bullshit. Clickbait. I don't believe any of them. I don't believe that the United hierarchy have serious reservations about Carrick. I don't think they're panicking. I don't think they're all of a sudden looking at even specifically the Leeds match or the last three matches and saying, hitting the panic button and saying Michael Carrick's not the guy and we got to go get somebody else and forget about Michael Carrick. I don't think that's happening. I don't think that has happened. I think Carrick is still a very, very strong candidate. If whether he's the top candidate or the second candidate, he's definitely still there. I think he'll be there. No matter what, until this comes to a conclusion. But I sort of want to just, I want to talk about it a little bit more because, listen, I've been sort of out of the fold a little bit. Okay, I haven't been too, into this going crazy. I've been sort of doing other things and kind of taking a step back, and I have been thinking though, without getting sort of influenced by any sort of updates or, information, I've sort of been thinking about this. What is the right call for Manchester United to make? Do you go with Michael Carrick if he finishes third and finishes strong and gets us Champions League? Do you continue the project under Michael Carrick, or would not Julian Nagelsmann be the correct call? Because I don't think we're going to be able to really get Luis Enrique. I think obviously Luis Enrique is the best pick out of all of them, but I still don't believe that that's has any chance of happening. I don't think it will happen. I don't really rate the other guys, to be quite honest, and I think as it stands, I think to me it's either Carrick or Julian Nagelsmann, and I do like Carrick. The one aspect that scares me of Carrick is obviously the sort of inexperienced. because you just don't really know what you're going to get. I mean, it could go well. He could do a good job once given the permanent role and continues on forward and helps us build something. But also, at some point, it could go sort of horribly wrong. And he could struggle. And also, next season will be quite different from this season when he took over. And how he handles, the challenges of next season with his sort of inexperience at a manager level. It does concern me a bit. And I do kind of feel like, if you ask me what's the best decision for Manchester United Football Club, I think you have to go with a guy like Julian Nagelsmann. I mean, I sort of look at the other clubs' situation as well. Like, I mean, I sort of look at Liverpool. If they sack Arne Slot, they're not going to go. They're probably not going to get somebody that's super more inexperienced, like Carrick is. Even though Carrick knows the club, but he's inexperienced as a manager. I don't think they're really going to get somebody like that to replace Slot. I think they will look at, some bigger top managers. They will even probably look at to get Nagelsmann in. I think he would be a viable option for them. I don't really look at Chelsea because Chelsea's a bit crazy and they're all over the place. But, I think if City let Pep Guardiola go, they're going to do the same and they're going to try and get a top experienced sort of manager. Even, clubs like Barcelona, Real Madrid, I think Real Madrid, they're in a weird position right now with sort of the managers that they got, but I expect them to sort that out by the end of next season. So, it's really binary, Carrick or not Carrick. The issue is keeping Carrick is that if the new season does not start well, there will be no patience with him. I don't believe that, though. Is that how you feel, though? I mean, I don't really think that. I think it's sort of the opposite. I think actually Michael Carrick would probably get more leeway. Well, it would be divisive, but I still think he'd get more leeway than any other guy because he's associated with the club. I think if Carrick has an average start to next season and you get another guy, the only thing that might help him is that he's fresh and new. So if he had about the same average start, maybe you get away with it. But over the course of a season, I just feel like because of the aspect that he's connected to the club, I feel like if he did a certain level of job, a lot of fans would let him slide through on it. Whereas if you just got some guy that has nothing to do with United, after some point, many more people would turn their back on him. So, I actually think that for Carrick, there's probably more patience with Carrick. But it ultimately is not about patience. It's about what is actually the best decision for Manchester United. Because, there's Carrick's done well, but Carrick isn't the be-all and end-all. He is a guy that still needs to learn a lot of things and get a lot more experience, and he'll make mistakes and he'll be naive, and he doesn't have all the answers, and he'll have to figure things out along the way. And how that may necessarily affect us in a season that's ultimately going to be ultra important. Next season, it's going to be high stakes stuff. Back in the Champions League, we haven't been in the Champions League many times over the last 4 or 5 years. We've been very in and out of it, and we haven't even been in Europe this season. So, next season is going to be one that's ultimately important because, we're going to have to do good, and we're going to have to finish in the Champions League again if we're going to progress and move forward and go anywhere. And, the report that Ineos are aware or concerned that they need to get the correct call for the manager. I mean, yeah, no shit. But I would extend that as to not only do they have to get the call right for the manager, they also have to get the summer window correct as well. I think from the upper management perspective, this is sort of a bit make or break for them because they kind of have to do two aspects. They need to get the manager correct and they need to buy the correct players and continue to build out the squad correctly. If they fuck up either one of them, and more specifically, if they fuck up the buying of the players, more likely whatever manager they do decide to go with, whether it's Carrick or somebody else, their manager pick will end up failing as well. So I think the personnel is probably, at this current time, is probably still a bit more important than the manager or the head coach itself. But really, they need to get both correct because they can't really, in terms of optics, they can't really hire another manager and have that fail within, like, you know, a season or two, and sack another guy. Because that's just going to be, you know, 3 in a row. Bad track record of the managers. They also have other bad things going against them. And then, you know, what happens in that season as well? You know, what happens if we are just, what happens if we're so bad we end up in a position that we sack them? And then, you know, what happens to our season from there? There's huge implications. I mean, we've seen sort of an example of this. Now, I don't think it would get this bad, but I mean, look at how sort of Spurs went. You know, they hired Thomas Frank. They got rid of Postecoglou. Okay, they were looking to improve. They didn't improve. You know, in terms of the table of the league, they ended up back sort of in the same position. They did good in Champions League, but ultimately they ended up sacking Thomas Frank, and their situation has gone worse because they're going to get relegated. Now, I don't think that'll necessarily happen to us. I don't think we'll end up back down in 15th and we'll get relegated. But finishing outside of the Champions League and maybe potentially finishing outside of Europe, you know, that could happen with the wrong decisions made here. So, I mean, I really like Julian Nagelsmann. I think he's a good manager. I think we should go for him. I think that personally, I don't know. My gut is sort of telling me that the correct decision for Manchester United would try and get the best experienced manager at the highest level that you could possibly get. Now, if you can't get Enrique and you can't get like Ancelotti, you know, you start going down to the list. For me, Julian Nagelsmann is the guy. I also think it makes a little bit more sense because we do have Christopher Vivell at our football club, and they obviously both came, you know, from RB Leipzig or Red Bull Group. I'm pretty sure they've worked together at some point as well. And I think that would help us for the club to continue to build the squad ultimately together, because you have Vivell, you have Nagelsmann, you got a head of recruitment that understands Nagelsmann. They have a working relationship. They know sort of the type of football. You'd have to get Wilcox, you know, on board or whatever, because he is the director of football. But I think that it would sort of start to make sense in that direction. So, I mean, I don't know exactly what the club is going to necessarily do. I still do feel like that Carrick is in a pole position to get the job. I don't think that they're 100. I don't think that Nagelsmann is a guy that they would be 100% against. He might cost some more money compared to Michael Carrick, but ultimately it's their decision to make. I mean, if they really want to go for the best decision, the best in class, and they're actually going to follow through on that, then I think we'll probably end up seeing somebody, if they can actually get them, Okay, because that's another aspect. I mean, you could want Enrique all you want, but if Enrique tells you I'm staying at PSG, I don't give a shit. And I don't want to talk to you. Well, then you can't get Enrique in, so you won't be able to get best in class. If you want to go, if you say Ancelotti is best in class or one of the best in classes, and Ancelotti's like, yeah, not interested and going to stay at Brazil, well, then you can't get him. You got to start going down the list. So. I mean, if they really want to follow through with that, then we'll see. We'll see somebody come in instead of Michael Carrick. But yeah, I mean, I just don't. I'm a bit concerned. I'm a bit concerned with this pick because I don't know. I think Carrick's done a good job since he's come in. But I can sort of see, I can sort of see a few holes. Like, number one, the coaching staff. I think for a coaching staff that you had to put together literally like, with no preparation and sort of last second and had to do it quickly, I think, it's a decently good enough coaching staff and it's done a decently good job for the period that they came in till now. But, that's not really the coaching staff that we need, is it? Going forward. Like, my expectations for the club would be, okay, we didn't really plan on firing Ruben. Ruben sort of, forced our hand a little bit. So we had to act quickly and, come up with something. I gave them credit for giving Carrick a chance instead of going back down the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer route that we already experienced. I didn't think it should have been Ole. They got Carrick in, they got these guys in. We performed exceptionally well over the course of 7 to 8 matches. Brilliant run. Nobody thought he was going to do it. But I sort of look at this at once this season ends, you absolutely have to look at the work that Carrick's done and take him into consideration, especially if he achieves third place and Champions League and stuff like that. But at the same time, if Ineos decide to basically keep all of that coaching staff and keep Carrick, then I think it's a wrong decision. It's a bad decision. And I think at some point we'll probably end up suffering for it. Because really, that coaching staff is not, in my opinion, it's not a legitimate coaching staff. I mean, you have Johnny Evans there, who was a loan manager, left the club, and we bring him back in to help with set pieces or whatever he's doing. There's Jonathan Woodgate and, the other guy that I always forget his name, that was assistant coach to Southgate. Is this the sort of level of people altogether? I think if you're going to have somebody like Michael Carrick, you need a much better support system behind him, with stronger, better personnel that are more experienced, that are going to be able to sort of help him out when he's there. So Renoso's here as well. Says hello, everyone. And hello, Eric. What's up, brother? How are you doing? So I do, and then there's things like Carrick has only been in so many situations. With Nagelsmann, he's coached bigger, better players to a certain degree. Now you could argue, well, Carrick's played and won things with bigger, better players, but he's coached Bayern, he's coached the national team. He's actually coached and managed in Champions League matches and high stakes matches a lot more than Michael Carrick has. So that's why I sort of lean a little bit towards Julian Nagelsmann. Now, I don't know if the club is going to actually do this. It does seem like Nagelsmann is probably the one that is up on the list because they've sort of all taken their turns. But as we know, it seems like Enrique and Ancelotti and Tuchel are definitely not attainable in any sort of way. I do think though on the list, out of the people that are available, I do think that Nagelsmann by default is sort of the first or second viable option. I mean, Glasner will be available, but I don't really like him. And you could always poach Iriola, no problem, unless he goes somewhere else before you decide to do that. But if you decide you want him, you go for him. But I don't think his credentials, um, you know, to get a guy that's managed Bournemouth, I like the style of football he plays. He does play good football, but it is a massive, massive jump to go from AFC Bournemouth to coming into Manchester United. And he has no background in Manchester United. He has no experience in Manchester United other than managing against us, but it's not the same. When you're in that seat, it's a totally different animal. And, there's talks about him going to Atletico Bilbao. Like, I do think, like, listen, you could probably do Bournemouth. You could probably go to Atletico Bilbao. And then you probably go up from there and maybe get a chance at sort of a club above Atletico Bilbao, maybe in between a Barca or Real Madrid, or maybe end up at a Barca or Real Madrid at some point. But I do think that there's a level in between Bournemouth and Manchester United, or Bournemouth and Real Madrid, or Bournemouth and Barcelona, for example. So I don't think that he is an actual viable candidate. And then somebody like Unai Emery, like, yeah, he's got the experience, but he's at Villa, and for us to get him, it's going to cost a lot more than any of these other guys. So I don't really see how that's going to happen. Reynoso says, I'll back Carrick, same as any manager, but his time should remain as an interim, and Nagelsmann should be the choice if it's between the two. Yeah, that's sort of how I feel as well. Like, I'm not going to hate on Carrick or anything like that. And if they choose to go with Carrick, I mean, I wish us, and when I say us, I mean, like, Carrick, the club, and the team, I wish us all the best. I hope it goes really well. I have some reservations, some concerns. I could see how it could potentially maybe go wrong in some areas. And, what once looked like something very positive could turn very negative. We've seen that happen in many different aspects, in many different ways at Manchester over the last 13 years. And I think with Carrick, it's definitely a possibility because Carrick's a bit of the unknown, like I said before. Like, we don't really know what the story is actually going to be. He is sort of fresh in management. It could be good. It could be just mediocre, average. It could go bad and get to a spot where it's very ugly, very hard to sort of watch or go through. And I think because of that, part of that is because his story hasn't really been written yet. Him as a manager, his story hasn't really been written yet. He's still very early on the path. He did a good job at Middlesbrough, but it was just Middlesbrough. That's it. These other guys, they have had, different sort of experiences at different levels with different types of players, different clubs, different circumstances and different matches. Carrick hasn't really got all that. And I do say, again, I think if Michael Carrick was just a guy, okay, and had no correlation to Manchester United, no relation, no attachment to it in any sort of way, I don't think he would, I don't think he would, one, I don't think he'd be able to do the job that he has sort of been doing. I don't think it would have gone as well as it has. Because I think a guy with his level of experience coming into United and not knowing anything about United, I think they would be so overwhelmed, and probably fold and crack under the pressure. I think the only thing that helps Michael a lot is that he was a player here and he achieved the ultimate goals. So it's easier for him to manage the pressure because he already knows it. He had it as a player, and this was when we were good and we were expected to win every match. And, we sort of still have that, but we haven't really been good. So the bar is a little bit lower. You do have a run like he's had, and people are, really happy with it and over the moon. And he's saying he's doing such a great job. But, back in the day when he was a player, that was just sort of standard. We never really went below any of that. So, I don't know what the club is going to do necessarily. I do believe, in my sort of heart of hearts that I don't know. I just think that the best course of action for United is for stability. You probably get the guy that's a bit more experienced, um, and further along the path. It's a bit tough though, because the one argument I will make is, listen, we go play Chelsea, we can turn this around real easy. We put in a good performance, we get a good result, and all the sort of doubts around Carrick will go away. Okay? And the one thing that I sort of pops into my head and says, well, listen, he's come in, he started sort of this project from January, I guess you would say, and it's going to go up to May. So it's about 5 months, almost 6 months that he's been here and sort of, putting this stamp of his managerial authority on this team. And if it finishes as strong as it possibly can, and ultimately it's as positive as it can, there is an aspect to argue, well, do you really want to sort of, throw that away and get in another guy and start again for next season? So I don't think it's an easy decision. I don't think it's an easy decision at all. I'm not as cynical as some people. I don't believe I don't believe everything is 100% PR. I do think that they do have a list of people that they are considering, whether they plan to really act on that and pursue somebody else. I kind of feel like what we've seen with Ineos is that they do sort of, when they want to, they will take their time. They don't really care. They'd rather do this sort of long-term or long thought out process. They will wait. And they said, they sort of have said this, and it does seem like it's following that path, because there's about 6 matches left in the season. I think they're kind of just sitting here and saying, listen, we don't really need to ultimately rush that much. We can let the season end and we can make a decision 2 weeks after the season's over. There's not really a need to really jump on this and make a decision, say it's Carrick or it's not Carrick right now. They can just wait, watch the rest of the 6 matches, see how it finishes, and then make sort of a final decision on it, and go with what they want to go with. So, and I'll argue the position Carrick played requires a broader understanding of the game in motion. Mourinho has had said that same about Alonso way before his big season at Leverkusen. But he's just... and then you didn't finish your thought. But, well, listen, Carrick being a midfielder, I've been saying this for a while, and I think I'm not the only one, obviously, but I've always held on to the belief, being a midfielder, former player, playing the midfield, I think helps you tremendously as a manager. You need to understand both sides of the game. You're especially if you started, when you're a boy at a young age playing midfield, you do learn and develop to read the game exceptionally well, probably better than all the other players on the pitch. And there's quite numerous examples. It doesn't mean everybody becomes a good manager, because you have to have other qualities. It's not just about reading the game, but it is a big part. I mean, Pep was a midfielder. Mourinho was a midfielder. He wasn't a very good one, but he was a midfielder. Arteta was a midfielder. Carrick is a midfielder. Even Vieira was a midfielder. I think Fergie might have been a midfielder as well. So that aspect does help quite a lot. Alonso, as was pointed out, as well. So, I mean, I don't know. It's to me, it's a bit of a conundrum. I mean, I don't know. What the community feels like. And by the way, anybody, whoever's watching, by the way, please smash the like button. Get that done for us. Greatly important. And if you did that already, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. But guys, we weren't around to talk about the match, so if you guys sort of want to update me, you know what I mean? If you want to update me, you know, what you thought about the match and you know, really how it went for us and you know, what it really looked like. If you want to describe it to me, I'd appreciate it because I didn't really get to watch it. I was at work and you know, I turned it on for like 10 minutes and within 5 minutes, Lisandro got that red, which by the way, I mean, absolutely bullshit. Like, listen, it was stupid by Lisandro. You know, there is VAR. Okay, he did grab his hair, but I don't think that that's an accurate description. I don't think that that's necessary. It's the intent behind it was, okay, he grabbed his hair. It's a foul, but I don't think it fits under the constitution of violent, okay? Because you can grab somebody's hair and just sort of pull it just a little bit, and I don't think that's necessarily violent, but there's also then grabbing somebody by the head and fucking yanking it, and I think that that's violent, and I think the context matters, and I think the referee's job is to interpret the laws as they seem or deem it, and you know, I don't, you know, I had somebody tell me they're following it to the letter of the law, and I'm like, well, no, because I think when you look at it, there's the intent in terms of what did he actually do? Did he do it because he wanted to actually hurt the guy, or he did it because he was just trying to foul him, basically, and he ended up just grabbing onto his hair because that was, you know, where whatever, it was just there. It was the quickest, easiest thing that he could grab onto so that he could get the foul. You know, and for me, I mean, if it was another game and I was a referee and I saw that, I'd give him a yellow. I don't think I'd award a red card for that because to me, it was not violent. It did not constitute under violence. You know, but it is what it is. Ironically, Fergie was a striker. Was he a striker? I always forget what position he played. Was he a striker? I could have swore he... Yeah, maybe he was a striker. But yeah, I mean, listen, our situation is still sort of is what it is, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a good, you know, result or anything like that for us. But let me just look at the table. We do have Chelsea coming up. Okay, it is going to be a big match. I need to see if I'm going to be around for that as well. So, listen, we're still in third, okay? And, you know, we're still tied on points with Villa. We do have a plus 12 goal difference, so that does help. Liverpool made a little bit of ground on us, okay? Because they're on 52, 3 points behind us now. All right, so, you know, and Chelsea's down there in 48th, on 48 points in 6th, sorry. And then obviously we got to play them. So we're going to be away as well. It's going to be a tough match. And what is that, Saturday? It's the 18th Saturday. It is Saturday at 3 in the afternoon. I might be around for that. I might not be around for that. So I'll try and let you guys know. If anything, I will know tomorrow, end of the day, tomorrow, or late in the day, tomorrow, if I'll be around for that, because I might have to work, and if I'm working, I won't be able to necessarily catch that game. Well, it depends what time I'm working till, so I probably won't be able to catch it, and I probably won't be able to do a Red Devil recap, but you know, we'll see how that sort of thing goes. Listen, we do have some other news. Moving away from sort of the manager talk, okay, that we should probably discuss and bring in. There's been a slight little updates about Marcus Rashford. I think there was 2 updates. So one publication, which I believe is a Spanish outlet. Now, I don't know anything about them. They could be the Spanish Sun for all I know, but they're called El Nacional. Okay, they got 5.6 million followers, so they are a, sort of, I guess, legacy media, big corporation, whatever. They came out with an update saying that Barcelona, via Deco, don't plan to keep Marcus Rashford beyond the season due to poor fitness. I think they meant to say poor fitness and performances. A £30 million move is now unlikely. And following that, we then got just an update 48 minutes ago from Fabrizio Romano saying that there is still no agreement between Marcus Rashford, between Manchester United and Barcelona over Marcus Rashford. United are firm, pay the €30 million euro release clause, or will welcome Rashford back and then decide whether to sell him to another club. Barcelona want to restructure the deal, possibly another loan with an obligation, and are looking for a creative solution. I mean, this saga just needs to end. I tell you what, though. If you want to do conspiracy, PR, whatever, you don't trust Ineos type of thing. If they keep Michael Carrick and they bring Marcus Rashford back and then they don't end up selling him and he ends up coming back into the team, I think it's a shit show. I think it's a terrible decision. I think it's terrible managing of the football club. I think that'll be a fucking joke if they do such a thing. So we'll see how that goes. But we do have sort of a bunch of little transfer updates here and there, so I'll sort of speed run through them. And just go on this. I mean, Reynoso did mention Fergie, and apparently there was this quote from Nagelsmann in 2020 and said Sir Alex Ferguson had a long and very successful time at Manchester United, so it was also interesting having to watch him, including the changes he made from one season to the next. So, listen, Nagelsmann is 38, which would put him right at the right age to basically grow up watching Sir Alex Ferguson's entire tenure, at Manchester United and the rebuilding of all those squads as well. So maybe, he did learn some things from watching him over the years as well. But we do have this update on the transfers. Manchester United are tracking Lewis Miley, but face competition from PSG, Arsenal, and Chelsea, with Newcastle United keen to keep him long-term until 2029. Okay. And then we do have this from David Ornstein. So Ornstein Bumba, because Ornstein is very, very, very credible. And he said there are several other serious midfield candidates flying under the radar, such as Alex Scott, who shouldn't be overlooked. You expect more discussion around these names in the coming weeks. And that's also in correlation to, well, he provided us big updates today, actually. So, let me start from the beginning. Ornstein, he provided the latest on Manchester United's search for a permanent head coach and then gave us some transfer updates for the midfield. So, Ornstein said, the way things are going, I don't see United picking the likes of Areola, Glasner, or Silva ahead of Carrick. I don't either, by the way. But he then goes on to say, although if they miss out on Champions League, I assume they would all come into play, and I guess that's fair as well. That's why we'll have to be a bit patient. I hear United have completed all of their background work and no doubt spoken to representatives, although I'm told no interviews with candidates have taken place yet. If they had, we would probably have heard whispers at the very least. It's a huge call for United and their sporting director, Jason Wilcox. He's leading the process and will make a recommendation on the board. As things stand, it might feel like Carrick is in pole position. However, nothing has been decided, and therefore it could, of course, end differently. And I think, listen, it's Ornstein, but I think the way Ornstein has put this, I think is probably the most real and the most logical. Again, there's so many people out there that they just say it's all PR spin. Don't believe anything. Don't trust anything. It's all one giant conspiracy theory. And I don't really buy that shit. Again, I'm not in that. I think always there's two extremes. You could go either side of the aisle you want, but the truth is always somewhere in the middle. To me, it sounds the most logical. To me, it sounds the most proper sort of process to do such a thing. I mean, it makes sense. We've done well. The last 3 matches haven't gone particularly well. It's still very tight. I'm still banking on us to finish as strong as possible. I still do believe that Carrick can get the job done. And we're in third now. It's in our hands. So I do think we can finish third. We just have to go and do the job. But it is still tight there. It is still tight in that table. And there is 6 matches left for us to play. Okay, so there is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 points left on the table. With 18 points, that's a lot can happen in 18 points. Okay, so we could finish third, we could finish fourth, we could finish fifth. Even with 18 points, and we're playing Chelsea, this is a 6-pointer. They could go over us as well. And we could go into 6th. So I think it only makes sense that, number one, no decision has actually been made. Because why, I think actually if you're incompetent, you would already make a decision. I think the people that have been linked to us, I think definitely it makes sense to reach out to representatives to sort of do all the minuscule background work, like he mentioned, all the little sort of things. Hey, obviously we're looking for a manager. Is your client or would your client be interested? We're sort of just feeling things out. They get back to them, let them know maybe a couple minor details. They say, okay, thanks. We'll sort of be in touch in the future. And that's about it. They haven't actually sat down with anybody in terms of invited them in, sat them down, had a one-on-one meeting with the manager themselves. But I do think that they have obviously contacted numerous representatives and just to find out, hey, would your client be interested in this if we, would like to hire him, whatever. And they tell them yes or no, and they go, thanks. So I do think that's what's going on here. And I think that's where we are. And that's why we're just going to have to wait, like he said, to be patient. Like, the season needs to end. We need to see where we exactly finish. We need to see how the last 6 matches exactly go. And then I think once the season ends, I actually do think that regardless of how Carrick does, I still think we'll probably see at least a couple of them actually be properly interviewed, like actually be called for a meeting and discussions and have an interview. And then after they do that, then they'll sit down and they'll actually make a final decision and go with it. So on the timeline spectrum, I'm predicting right now that the season will end. Will probably take a couple weeks, maybe 2 or 3, to do all this other stuff, maybe with interviews and stuff. I don't know what they would necessarily be able to do with Nagelsmann because he's going to, the World Cup. So maybe they get him in first. And then they'll make a decision after they do sort of interviews. And then, so I think it'll be a few weeks, probably after mid-June. And we'll get our answer. So, but then Ornstein did give us an update about Elliot Anderson, okay, Adam Wharton, and, just a couple things. So, on Elliot Anderson, Nottingham Forest are looking to smash the Premier League record for a midfielder transfer fee with the sale of Elliot Anderson. Okay, and on Adam Wharton, he said there's a strong admiration for Adam Wharton, but Crystal Palace are expected to demand a very high fee. Clubs like United view him as a secondary midfield option, with a priority signing more likely to be Elliot Anderson or another target. And it does seem like that, but it seems to be going like that. We did get an update on De Ligt, by the way, and again, I mean, there's no known return date for him. From what I know, it is a bit chronic, so it can come and go. I mean, I'm starting to be really concerned about Matthijs de Ligt in terms of not even just like injury proneness or whatever. I'm actually concerned for his like well-being in like health. I mean, like, what has he actually done? Like, this seems to be very, very, very serious and bad. Like, you know, like at this point, like I'm starting to conspiracize. Like, is this like is this something that's gonna like just sort of end his career in one way or another? I mean, I don't know what's going on. I mean, they described it as chronic, so it comes and goes. I mean, but what is it? Like, you telling me that like whatever he has, you know, is he trying to not get a surgery? Can he? Is there not a surgery? You know, what is it? What has happened to our player? What has happened to our player? Um, because this is just it's genuinely concerning now. I am worried for the guy. I am worried for Matthijs de Ligt. You know, very scarce information. They just say it's his back and it's taking longer than it is, and there's no return date for him, and there's no updates about it, and it's just like, well, what has actually gone on, man? Because I'm starting to get very concerned that actually he sustained some sort of a problem that, you know, could be like Owen Hargreaves type of thing, where it just that's it. You know, he tried to come back from it a couple times, couldn't happen, and you know, career over. At a way too young of an age. And I hope that's not the case. But there's no update that we're being given that sounds any type of bit of positive. So, but he did mention Alex Scott, David Ornstein. I do want to say this. I do like Alex Scott. I think Alex Scott would be a very good addition if we were able to get him. He's been playing very well. And I think he's done a fantastic job, you know, in that team. But I think his ability is good. And I do think he's a player that he seems very grounded. He seems very solid. I think he's a player that, you know, would add some quality to that midfield. I don't know how much he would cost or what Bournemouth would like for him. And obviously, you know, the price of a player always has like the impact of, you know, is it a good deal? Is it a bad deal? Do you do the deal? Do you not do the deal? But just in general, as a player, I like his ability. I like what he's got to offer. I think his passing ability and his passing range is quite good. He reads the game quite well. I think he's smart. And he's got some good technical ability. So, I don't know. I mean, I would kind of be looking at him in this midfield rebuild that we are experiencing. Or potentially going to experience. But I don't know. We'll see how that sort of goes. Now, Ben Jacobs is saying that it could even be 6 or 7 incomings depending on outgoings. Now, I find that a bit hard to believe. And listen, I'll discuss what Ben Jacobs reports, but Ben Jacobs isn't a guy. You know, listen. If David Ornstein says it could be 6 or 7, or it's going to be 6 or 7, okay, I'll listen to David Ornstein on it, or you know, Fabrizio. But Ben Jacobs, what I don't like what Ben Jacobs does is that because he is a journalist, okay, he does sometimes provide updates in a way where, in my opinion, and I don't know if he does it on purpose or not, or this is just sort of, it's just something that it's just the way that it comes across. But again, like he says, like it could even be 6 or 7 incomings depending on outgoings. Now, then you take that statement, him being a journalist, okay, people out there, well, some people will take that as, well, he's a journalist. He knows something that we obviously won't be able to get information to. He has sources, so he's hearing things. But that also could literally just be his opinion. Just like how I can sit here and say, I think it's going to be 6 or 7 incomings. It's very easily just an opinion. It doesn't have to be based in anything. But because he's a journalist, some people out there now they're going to expect, well, he's connected, he's got sources, he gets updates, and they're going to be expecting 6 or 7 incomings. But I kind of take that statement as he's literally just giving his opinion. He actually doesn't know. He hasn't been told anything like that from inside the club or any of his sources. He's sort of just basically guessing to a certain degree. He's basically just, it's his opinion. It's his feeling on the situation. But there's no actual, he hasn't really gotten nobody from inside United or working close to United has said, well, actually, we're actually looking to get maybe about 6 or 7, So, sorry, dog, was driving to the park. So, bro, describe for me what position Scott is and how he will be used if we were to sign him. Well, I think Scott is, I think he is like, he's a central midfielder. I think maybe you could play him as a center attacking mid, because I think he does tend to like to get in and around the box sort of areas. I do think maybe he, in that sort of sense, he would be a bit similar to Kobe in that way. But I sort of see Alex Scott as, he's a bit like, maybe I'll get annihilated for this opinion, but I kind of see Alex Scott, he could be a bit similar to sort of like a Beckham, but instead of being on as a winger, he's a central midfielder, in terms of a guy that, like, I think he can put in like very good passes, even crosses. I don't know, he just has something about his game there where, like, he can read, he analyzes angles, to put the balls into. He can hit it at the correct weight, the correct speed. But listen, he has a very excellent shot on him as well. So I think he's a guy that definitely, listen, I don't know too much about his defensive side. I think maybe he could do an all right defensive side. I haven't really been paying attention too much on his defensive capabilities. But from seeing him a bunch of times, the guy has a really great shot. He tends to look quite dangerous in and around the opponent's box. And I have seen him put in some fabulous passes, crosses, etc. So I kind of see him a bit like, he's like David Beckham light, but in the center instead of the wing, in a certain aspect. To me, anyway. I don't know. Somebody out there will hate me for saying such a thing, but whatever. Which brings me to pose the question here. Do you feel that we need to really decide what we're doing with Mano? Because a lot of the players we are eyeing, I don't believe will play well with him. Well, we're keeping him for sure, because he's set to sign a new contract. And I mean, I think we need to decide, in terms of what we're doing with him, how we're going to actually develop him. In terms of picking something that we say that these are your best qualities, or, this will play to your strongest qualities, and we're going to continue to develop you in this specific position. And finally pick it. So whatever it is, because some people think Kobe can play in the 10, and they'd like to see him play in the 10, and they think he'd play better in the 10 position where Bruno plays. But with Bruno being here, he won't get that opportunity because Bruno is the captain and he's going to play every game, and he's also Bruno. So I do think that they need to sort of start specializing his development a little bit more, because I still do think he's still sort of a bit of I look at him and I say, like, he doesn't specialize specifically in one area. Like, he's not magnificent in one specific thing. He's sort of still very balanced. And I think somewhere you have to say, like, all right, let's make you like the best at these specific qualities and move from there. But also, listen, he's a young guy and he's still got a lot more to develop. And the people that we would potentially maybe get in, like Elliot Anderson or any of these other guys, I mean, they're also still, they still have ways to go as well in terms of development. Elliot Anderson is the same. Like, they're not in their prime, they're not in their peak. And part of that is, like, listen, maybe on paper they don't necessarily seem like they'll go together, but that's part of the coaching and the managing and the development of players as well. Like, you'll have to develop a chemistry, you'll have to develop their games further, and part of the job will be to make it happen, to make it work. So you're gonna have to figure out a way anyway, going forward. And then part of it, I think, comes down to, sort of survival of the fittest, is what I usually call it. Best pair, best man, best, player, whatever wins out. If you get Elliot Anderson, and maybe some people think Elliot Anderson and Kobe Mainoo next to each other won't work, but if you go with it and it does quite well, well then, okay, we're all right. And then they get to play. And if it doesn't work quite well, well, then one of them is going to lose out. And then maybe somebody else will get an opportunity. And if they perform quite well, well, then, it is what it is. It's just the way that sort of the cookie has to crumble. And then he'll have to sort of have a different, position or role in the team and go from there. So, do we plan to bench and develop Kobe, bring in competition for Kobe, or start Kobe and buy cover? Well, that I don't really know. I mean, it's really up to them. Again, I think generally, I don't think you necessarily have to make 100% decision on that, because I think you look at Kobe and you'll say, well, he's good enough to start, or he can start, or he has the potential to be able to, perform in a sense where he wins out the duel to start. But I think generally, you bring in the players that fit the squad, that have the quality, and just let them duke it out. And a lot of it has to do with training. I mean, listen, the managers, they make the decisions a lot of the times. Yes, okay, they can develop a plan and say, well, this guy has the certain qualities, he fits exactly what I need there. But then there's also the other part, which is the daily training on a weekly basis. That's sort of where the battle goes on. So to me, I think it's a bit more general. I think it's just, listen, you don't necessarily have to say, well, we're bringing in these guys and we're going to bench Kobe and we'll develop him. I think it just sort of is, get these guys because they have good quality, bring them in, put them up against each other in training, and whoever performs the best, you guys start, the other ones don't, and we go from there. And then on a weekly basis or a daily basis, they're fighting each other. They're teammates, but they're fighting each other for who has the right to start. And I think it's constantly a changing thing. I don't think you necessarily have to sit there and say, well, we're going to bench Kobe next season. We're going to develop him in the background. So let's bring in like these two other midfielders. I think you bring in the quality that's needed, that's proper, and then just go from there. And whoever is the best performer whoever's doing the proper things in training, you give them the opportunity in the match. If they take the opportunity in the match, you keep rolling. If they're failing in the match, you get somebody else in, and whoever wins, wins. Yeah, I agree, bro, which is why I feel we need 2-6 profiles with the number 8 signing Gomes and Wharton, for example, or Baleba and Stiller, or any kind of mix or those. Well, that is true, and I mean, that's probably getting down more into, you know, the advanced side of things, which is obviously, I mean, there's people out there that they do tactic videos and analysis and break all that stuff down. I don't really do that stuff. You know, I keep it more simple. But I would say, yeah, I mean, when you're a director of football, when you are, you know, running the club, when you have data analysts and, you know, all this other stuff, yes. Then on that level, you know, when you're going into that depth, that that amount of detail, then yeah, I mean, you're getting down to the nitty gritty. You got to start taking and those into consideration and plan it out in that way as well. Because you are right, there is a certain aspect that, like, you don't want to buy 3 or 4 of the same player. Obviously, you need them to somehow be able to gel together, or, you know, fit the squad in the wider range, in the wider group. They have two players with certain qualities, and how do they relate to the rest of the team? How do they relate to the people behind them in the back line? How do they relate to the people maybe next to them, the wingers? And how do they relate to the people in front of them, such as Bruno and the striker? So, I mean, that's ultimately, I leave that up for them to do it, because they have shit that's far beyond us. I mean, they got, you know, programs, computers, they got people, as I said, data analysts, performance analysts. You know, that's their job to get all that sort of stuff, compile it, put it into a report, go over the report, and then make a decision from there. So, Anderson is just a premium Kobe for me. No, I don't think so. Like, I think Anderson, well, maybe, in a certain sense. I mean, I guess you could kind of say that, to a certain degree, because he is quite well rounded. I think Anderson. He does have a good shot on him. He does like to get heavily involved in the attack. Like many people would say, they feel like Kobe, you know, does better when he's in and around the box. But Elliot Anderson definitely could do defensive duties as well. So, yeah, you know what? Probably in a way, yeah, he's probably a bit of a more premium Kobe. But ultimately, I would say, Mike, well, in reality, we need 3 midfielders anyway. So, I mean, even if you get a guy that's like, it's like Kobe, but he's more premium, and you have 2 of them, that's still not necessarily bad, because in reality, you still need another 2 guys. The other 2 guys could be different from both of them, which could still work out fine and still balanced out fine. But, you know, I don't know what the club are actually going to do, because I'm starting now. The season's not over. The window's not open. But I've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks, Ugarte needs to be sold. We know he's not going to be able to give us enough. It doesn't work. It wasn't the right buy. We need to move on. There's no point in going for a 3rd season. He just doesn't have what we need, just doesn't fit what we need. We need to move him on. We're losing Cass, and we're already missing a midfielder. So, we need 3 midfielders. They keep saying we're going to get 2. I don't know what the plan is there. I don't really know. You know, it was a bit similar to last summer, when everybody was like, okay, we're going to get a striker, a number 10, you know, a winger or wing backs, whatever, and a midfielder. And, you know, we were saying this in March, April, May, June. And then halfway through July, they're like, well, actually, we're getting 2 number 10s, and we're getting a striker. And then everybody was like, well, how do we fit all the number 10s? And what about the midfield? And, we just never did it. So I don't know what they're like. If they're going to buy 2 midfielders, I don't really get the plan. I don't really understand what they've looked at and what sort of decision they're making, because I think it's light. We'll be light. So I don't know what is the plan for that. What is the plan for you're going to bring in 2 guys and have Kobe Manu? Are you going to keep Ugarte as a 4th? Are you going to sell him and go with 3? I think if you sell him and go with 3, I think that's crazy and would highlight significant incompetence in terms of probably Jason Wilcox, because he's the director of football. He's the sporting director. He's the one that would make the decision on that. So, I don't know. And thank you for the super chat, my friend. Let's share in some class action lawsuit money I got in the mail the other day. I don't even know what my old job did wrong. Keep up the good work, buddy. Thank you, man. You got class action lawsuit money. That's always good. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate that very much. I got a couple of those one time, but it wasn't any, dude, one time they were like, yeah, you get like $1. I was like, what am I going to do with $1? I was like, I'm not even going to waste my time with that class action lawsuit. Get $1.94. I was like, what? I was like, just keep it. Give it to somebody else. I don't know. Yeah, listen, the United aggregators, media, I mean, they're doing their thing for engagement. I'm seeing it everywhere. I mean, they're clipping up Nagelsmann's Bayern Munich, getting into the tactics. They're fully loading into it right now. Putting up clips saying overloading central channel and over occupation in the final third. I mean, it is what it is. This is what we do. So, they'll run away with this. I mean, I think we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. All right. But listen, we'll find out. You know what I mean? So, let me see. Did we get anything else? I think we did. Couple other transfer updates quickly. Okay, United have held initial talks with Tyler Adams in January, with a view to a summer move. Bournemouth want to keep Alex Scott, but United could still push ahead and may even look to sign 3 midfielders. Oh my God, this is the first update we've gotten about 3 midfielders, especially if they can secure one at a lower cost. But listen, I don't think that that's a problem. I think that's actually what the club need to do, and I don't have a problem if they get the 3rd guy at a lower cost. I think it needs to be done. I think getting a 3rd guy at a lower cost is a reasonable thing to do, because I will make the argument any day at any time, forever. Getting a guy at a lower cost, whether it's like Alex Scott or somebody else, I'd rather... It's basically my mentality of the same thing that I had with Solskjaer and Carrick. I would rather get somebody... It can't be just anybody and they're like shit. But what I'm saying is, listen, somebody like Alex Scott, maybe a Mateus Fernandez, or you could get on the cheaper that's not going to cost you above 60 million or 60 million. You could get him for, under 50 or something like that. Or maybe 50, whatever. It's not going to cost you the same as Elliot Anderson. It's not going to be 80. It's not going to be 90. It doesn't have to be 100. It's not going to be 70. Okay? But a player like Alex Scott or Mateus Fernandez that maybe you could say, just to throw out there, 45 million. Somebody will stay stiller, okay? And I'll go for that too. If you say we could get that guy and he's the 3rd, I'm taking that guy every day of the week over Ugarte, because we've seen enough from Ugarte. It's done. Like, he had his chance, he had his opportunity. We've seen him in enough different situations against enough different opponents. We know what he can give us. We know what he can't give us. We know that we need more. I think the proper smart way, and it's a gamble, but I think it's a calculated gamble, is get rid of that guy and go get somebody else like this for the third, because it's something new, it's something fresh, and just the fact that it's new, it's a different opportunity. It could be one that pays off. It could be one that's very beneficial to us. I think it makes the most sense logically to go and do something like that instead of keeping the guy that we know isn't going to be able to get the job done. So for me, if you spend a decently good amount of money on two of the guys and the third one you get for a cheaper option, 35 million, 40 million, I think that's the correct play. I think it's what needs to happen. It's what needs to happen. And this is the first update that I've seen somebody mention 3 midfielders. Ben Jacobs said it, but yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how this sort of develops. Once the window opens and once we start moving and things start happening and, players start actually agreeing deals and stuff like that, because they've been telling us 2 midfielders, but I just don't see how you could possibly. To me, they could do it. Let's put it this way. When I say I don't see how they can possibly not do it, I'm not saying that they won't do that. I'm just saying that in terms of the blueprint for what makes sense, I don't see how you could possibly do that. So to do something like that is where they will lose me, because then I won't know what the actual plan is. I think the blueprint is there. And I think, listen, we did the attack. You're going to spend a lot of money on the midfield. Do it. Do it once. Get it right. Do it properly. And we move on. I don't necessarily maybe would have gone in this direction if I was building it. Okay, because they seem like they've done the attack and now they're going to do the midfield. And then after the midfield, they'll end up doing the defense further. And they've sort of done 3 areas of the pitch in sections. Attack, midfield, defense. It seems like they're doing it in waves. It seems like it. I don't know if I would have necessarily done that. Maybe I would have just grabbed and been like, well, we need a striker here. We need a 10. Probably get a left back and, maybe do it a bit more balanced. But they've seemed to gone down this route. So if that's the case, let's do the midfield. Yes, we'll have to spend, a majority of the budget on the midfield. And maybe we'll have to sort of leave a little bit of a leaky spot in 1 or 2 positions. But if we get the midfield right, we don't have to worry about it for the next, number of years. We'll be all right. And then we could go and move on to the next phase. So, Renosa says, agreed on that, buying one cheap. That is what I would do on FIFA, so it has to work. Exactly. We need a Nicky Butt, and he shouldn't have to cost a ton. Well, this is why, but this is where I will say, Mike, but this is where the level of expertise of these people doing this job come into play. Because, if the scouting network is good, okay, and the analyst is good, and the club is set in a proper way where, listen, I'll put it this way, okay? You have Luis Campos at PSG, all right? Just like how he found and bring in all these players, and some of them, okay, they were a little bit more known. Like Joao Neves was a bit more hot. Everybody was sort of talking about Joao Neves. Joao Neves isn't like some guy that he just like pulled out, of his ass that costed like 5 million, and now he's worth like, 200 million. But like there are some players like that, like Desiree, like Doué, and a couple of these other players, like, bro, he got these guys for dirt cheap, okay? And this is because of his expertise, but then also, obviously, PSG have the money and have brought in people with a certain level of knowledge and expertise and are actually really excellent at their jobs, that the whole system goes correctly. And it's the same for us. Like, if these people can't do the job to that certain level, well, then they won't be able to find a guy that would be the third option that you can buy for basically a steal, okay, for 30 million, 25 million, if need be. They don't have to be the most expensive signing in the world, and I keep saying, well, the one hope that I latch on to is we seem to have done it with Senny Lemons. And my motto is, I mean, if you done it once, you could do it again. I mean, we figured out, or we accomplished it once, and we accomplished it in one position. So why can't we do it again and accomplish it again in a different position? They clearly had the capability to do so for that specific position in that area. So why wouldn't they be able to do it again? And my hope is that they will do it again. And I think that's exactly what we need, because we need a bit of balance. There is sort of the stars or the higher quality players out there. We do need to go after them and try and acquire them, but at the same time, we then need to fill out the rest of the squad. So we got to be able to find a guy that maybe only costs 20, 25 million that we could add in addition to the big players that we spent big money on to fill out the rest of the team. So, but we'll find out what they'll be able to do. We have been run poorly, and we have missed out on a ton of players, and, we're still not in the position where we're firing on all cylinders. I think it's gotten maybe slightly a bit better in some aspects, but there's still massive grounds for improvement that needs to be done if we're going to be on a playing level field as the rest of our rivals or the other big clubs that have been actually doing their thing for the last 6, 7, 8+ years. Nagelsmann over Carrick, as we need a best-in-class manager. Respect to Carrick as our club legend. Well, that's fair, Sadiq. I mean, I sort of think so a bit as well. And I'm just, listen, I'm sort of a guy that I'll look at. I mean, I'll let you know when I have made my mind up about something 100%. And I'll definitely give you my thoughts and opinion. But I'm also a guy that sometimes I like to look at both sides of the argument. I sort of like to look at the whole thing in a conversation, and I'll look at one side, I'll look at the other side, and I'll sort of make arguments for both. And I do see how that obviously, like, to go to your point, Sadiq, like in that argument, like, I don't know, look at our competition. Look at our other rivals. Like, would any of them necessarily, and some of them have, but look how it's maybe going for them. I mean, the only one that's it's sort of worked out for potentially is Arsenal, but they could still bottle it. Okay, they got some cracks going on there. They just got to the semifinals by the skin of their teeth. Okay, and they got a big match coming up against City, and they could still bottle the league. So, Arteta coming in, I mean, as a manager, he kind of technically had less experience than Carrick, but he did also was learning from Pep. So I don't know, it's experience in a different way. Carrick obviously was managing Middlesbrough, did well, but that's about as far as his experience goes. Whichever one you want to value more, I guess, whatever. But look at these other clubs. Like, I think Real Madrid, they took a shot on Xabi Alonso, but he did well at Bayern Leverkusen and did what he did there. So, but he's sacked, and now there's Arbiola. But I don't think Real Madrid are going to keep Arbiola. Like, I think at the end of the season, Real Madrid are going to go and try and get the best possible manager that they could possibly get. Barcelona have the best manager they could probably possibly get. PSG have the best manager that you could possibly probably get. City still have Pep, and I think if City were to move on, I don't think City would go and get somebody like, would they maybe go for Vincent Kompany? But at this point, Vincent Kompany has more experience than Michael Carrick, because he's managing Bayern. I don't know. But Also with Carrick, I mean, look, company, he got Burnley promotion, got Burnley relegated, went to Bayern, and now is considered a top manager in a certain sense. In terms of that, listen, he's doing really well with Bayern Munich. If he is to leave Bayern Munich, I'm sure he would get given another opportunity in another top club. So, I don't know. Different scouts for different areas, and outfield players are more coveted positions, I suppose. Yeah, but I think also there's a lot more of them as well. I mean, you are right. There's different scouts for different positions, so that could have an impact. Maybe, the goalkeeping scout that we had that recommended Lemons, he's just really fucking good at his job. And maybe the one that we have that would do midfielding, maybe he's just shit. So maybe you can't replicate it or whatever to that certain degree. There is a lot of supply and demand, but I think there's a lot more midfielders out there. There's a lot more demand for them, but there's also a lot more of them out there. So, I sort of just, I mean, I would put it this way, Renault. So think of the database, okay, for FIFA or for Football Manager. Think about how many players there is in the database, right? And then, search for just central midfield position. There's literally probably thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. So there's got to be options out there because other clubs do it as well. You just got to be able to find them. There's always the possibility, and there's always a player out there that there's some guy out there that you could get him for 20 million. Nobody really knows too much about him, or he's not one of these guys that drives clicks, but you bring him in and he's fucking brilliant. And that's where the expertise of our club comes in. So, but ultimately, I'll jock that down to, listen, at the end of the day, the only one that's really going to suffer from it, I mean, will suffer, but I mean, listen, if Ineos don't, if they want to try to do it on the cheap, or they believe that they have the guys that they have are best in class, and they want to say they're best in class, and they're not actually best in class, well, at the end of the day, it'll all fall on them anyway, because, I mean, if you have average, mediocre people in positions of job, and you're trying to pass them off as best in class, or that they're really, really good at their job, the results, well, the cracks will show when we don't get the players, when we don't find the answers, when we don't get, when we don't build the squad correctly, and it sort of all falls apart. So, at the end of the day, I mean, they'll live on the sword that they'll die by the sword that they have at some point. So, okay. Pete Hall said, well-placed sources are keen to stress there are no setbacks, as is often reported with De Ligt. With this type of injury, United's medical staff are aware that with back injuries, you have good and bad days. I mean, what the fuck did he do to his back? What did he do? I mean, I can understand what they're saying, because, I was involved in a car accident, and I always had sort of, my back was a bit weak, just normally before the accident, and after the accident, it got a little bit messed up, and I was messed up for, a bit of time. I couldn't work for, few months, and then when I did go back to work, when I lifted heavy stuff, it would get inflamed, and it would burn, and, my back would be in pain. I'd be pain. Especially it wouldn't really happen while I was doing it, but later on in the day. And that took time for that to go away. That took time for that not to happen to me. Because that was just every time, on a daily basis. I go to work, go home, I'm sitting down in pain. And that took a couple years, and listen, I don't have the medical facilities that they have. I probably could have made it better by going to physical therapy and all this stuff. I didn't do any of that stuff. But it took a couple years for that to actually go away, and it only improved basically physical therapy once I actually started working out. And I made it stronger, and that went away. So I do understand what they sort of mean by that. Like, with back injuries, you have good days and bad days, because sometimes you're okay, and then you do something, you move away, or you lift something or whatever, and then you feel destroyed. So I don't know. We will see, though. I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't know. I mean, James Duck is reporting Barca, Madrid, and Bayern are closely monitoring the progress of JJ Gabriel. Listen, I don't know what we got to do, but we must do everything and anything to keep that kid at the club, because to lose him now at this age would be a disaster and a travesty. So, I mean, I don't know his nationality, like his full nationality. Like, where was he actually born? He's English. Was he born in Manchester? He's English, but I'm pretty sure he's got another. Yeah, see, so Gabriel was born to a Cypriot mother who grew up in London. Okay, well, so at least he grew up in England. Born in England. Fair enough. It's that Cypriot in him makes him look like he's got a bit of South American in him. And the problem with the South Americans is that you're either a fan of Barcelona or you're a fan of Real Madrid. And if you come from Spain or Portugal, it's probably similar as well, because I mean Spain is right near Portugal and they're very similar in countries as well. And that's always a concern, because if you got one of these South American kids or something like that, or they got some history like that, they probably most likely grew up watching La Liga, and they most likely grew up, a Barca fan or a Real Madrid fan. And so at some point, if they are to become a superstar, they will want to play for either Real Madrid or Barca. And if you have them at your team, you will lose them at some point. Now, I don't know. He was born in England, and he's English. His mother's Cypriot, and maybe he thinks, United is the biggest club, and I never want to go anywhere else, and I just want to be like, superstar for the rest of my life at United. Maybe at some point he would get tempted to go to Real Madrid or Barca, but yeah, I'm a bit concerned, because again, our club is not in the ultimate strongest position to persuade anybody to stay with us and reject suitors, especially if Real Madrid pursue the shit out of him and try to convince him. I mean, can we really compete with them? No, we can't. So a good example was Jamie Vardy from Leicester. He was not a full-time player. He worked as a packer, and he would become a good player for Leicester. Yeah, stuff like that. Like, I mean, there's tons of players out there. You just got to find them. We got to pull the trigger on them, and, we got to just take a chance. Actually go down the route. My thing is, it's a bit in stages. I would actually like to see us let's at least try it. You know what I mean? Maybe it doesn't work out for us, but at least try it. At least be like, you know what? Here's our third option in the midfield. Okay, he costs 25 million. He's not considered one of these, like, maybe we get him from the French league and he's 23. Okay, he's not deemed like this wonder kid superstar. Like, he's not like the next Lamine Yamal or something, or he's not JJ Gabriel. But he could be like Lemons. I would like to see us maybe at least let's just try and let's at least attempt it. Let's at least make the signing. Sign somebody like that for there and see if it works. I think that will at least be a good start. By the way, I just have to hit on the Maguire thing because I almost forgot. So obviously Maguire did get suspended for an extra game. Okay, they did find him guilty. And I just need to say, I mean, it's complete dog shit. I mean, I knew. Listen, when they reported it, I said that I expected to happen, that he was going to get in further trouble for that. And I mean, when they released what he said, I mean, listen, I agree with Harry Maguire. Like, they are a fucking joke. Like, they are a joke. Okay? The, refereeing association, the independent panel, like, they're fucking jokes. It is a complete and utter joke. So actually, Maguire was spot on anyway. And it's a joke because, I mean, what about Haaland and the City players and, the shit that they were saying about referees and the things they were doing, and Haaland's going on Instagram and he's putting up a clip and he's writing what the fuck. So they can do that and they suffer zero repercussions at all. Nobody gets fined, nobody gets banned, nobody gets suspended for a match. But Harry Maguire literally just said it's a fucking joke, or you're a fucking joke. And not only did he give a red card, which was already controversial because they still won't admit that they didn't give us a foul, and then they gave them a foul for basically a similar circumstance. But then he got that red card, and then they gave him a one extra match. And then also they came out and tried to say that they were going to give him 2 matches, but because of his character and his reputation, they only gave him 1. The FA can take it and shove it up their ass. All right, fuck them. They're full of shit. Harry Maguire accepted the FA charge, but said he wanted to make it clear he did not use abusive language towards the 4th official. And United also submitted a witness statement from Joshua Zirkzee, who was confident Maguire did not call the official a joke. Which I don't think he even probably did call the official a joke. I'm pretty sure he just said this is a fucking joke. It's not directed at the 4th official. So, yeah, the PGMOL is in the mud. They suck. Again, instances. A lot of people had this to say, Vidic on Lisandro Martinez red card. During my time, we called it dueling. Today's football calls it violent conduct. Football has gone soft, especially in the Premier League. I wonder why Calvert-Lewin wasn't booked for holding the player's face as well. I was very disappointed with the referee's decision. I mean, yeah. They've been shit. And I'll say it again, and people think I'm like half joking, and maybe I kind of am. But until they provide me a better solution, replace the fucking refs with the AI. Replace them with robots. I'm ready for it. It's already happening to society. Might as well just do it now. Just get rid of the refs, and let's just get robots at this point. Because, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's bias. I don't know if it's corruption in terms of, match fixing or, money going under the table or whatever it is. But let's just get rid of the humans, because clearly the humans are quite shit at their job. They can't make proper calls. They can't make proper decisions. It's been disaster after disaster, and it's not only just for us. It's been through almost like every team throughout the whole entire season. And I just don't see how it's fixed, because part of me feels like it's either on purpose or it's just high incompetence that they don't think is a problem, and they don't think it's incompetence, and they don't think it's actually a problem. They think everybody's just bitching for no reason, and so the problem won't get fixed, and it'll probably just get worse. So Natasha says, "Hi, Eric. It's Natasha. Here, how's things? I have not been on for a week or so. Been poorly, but better now. What have I missed? Well, I haven't been on either. For about a week, and I popped in today because I actually was able to get a chance to jump on. But tomorrow I won't be able to go live, and Saturday I'm not sure. I'm sort of guessing that I won't be able to do so. And we obviously play Saturday, and I probably won't even be able to watch the match if I'm working, but I won't find out till tomorrow, till the end of tomorrow. So, and then Sunday's a question mark as well. So, Sunday, I'm sort of leaning towards I'll be able to, because I don't have that much confidence that I'll be working on Sunday. But they did tell me that there was a possibility that I'd be have to work on Sunday. So, you know. But I'm leaning towards Sunday will probably be an open day, and then we go from there. But I'm good, and it's good to hear from you. And I'm sorry that you were poor before, but I'm glad that you're better now. So, and he missed a lot. I mean, we talked about Carrick, Nagelsmann. We did some transfer updates and stuff like that. Talked about the midfield, you know. So. It's all about money. Looks like Carrick will be the manager. Well, we'll see. We'll see. We have a big sort of conversation about that, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, my only argument to that is, if it is all about money, and I get how people can go down that path, but I would make the counter argument that if it's all about money, spending, here's the thing, if you have to spend a little bit more money when you do the math, okay, if you have to spend a little bit more money on what people would qualify as a much better, stronger candidate of a manager with more experience and would probably give you a better chance at performing better going forward, I would argue the cost effectiveness of that, if it is all for money, well, paying a little bit more there would ultimately make you more money in the long run, because then you would probably most likely finish in Champions League again, which is money. You'd be able to perform in the Champions League itself, which is money. It could also potentially, if we do very, very well, we could end up getting into the Club World Cup, which is more money. So that's why I'm not saying that it could be all for money, but I think there's still another argument going the opposite way of that. Listen, you could penny pinch and try and save a couple on a manager, but I don't know, in the long run, that you could potentially lose money doing that. If you're picking the lesser option, that's not the strongest option, because you want to save some money, well, you then later down the line, 1 year in, or 2 years in, you stand to lose even greater money, because if the project doesn't, if you don't perform properly and you actually go backwards, you're going to lose more money. So the money you saved on the manager, you actually saved no money. You actually you fucked up everything right there, because you could have probably made more money if you just paid a little bit more. You know what I mean? And when you're doing the grand scheme of things, whatever the difference is between Michael Carrick and somebody like, let's say, Julian Nagelsmann, whatever the pay difference is, well, if Nagelsmann does such a fantastic job that over the next 2-3 seasons we're consistently in Champions League, okay, and we're getting that money and we're performing well in the Champions League, well, they've made more money. They've made way more money, and the money that they paid for Nagelsmann instead of Carrick, they've made tenfold on that. So, do you think City will beat Arsenal on Sunday? I don't know. I feel like they can do. I feel like Arsenal are a bit under pressure. So, I mean, if City beat Arsenal, I won't be surprised. I also sort of at the same time think that it is a huge, massive match. You know, it's basically almost essentially for the league. And I feel like in that type of match, you know, it's a bit like almost like a Champions League final. It's a bit almost like sort of like you know, sort of like even like the match we saw yesterday against Bayern and Real Madrid, like anything can sort of happen. Anything can sort of happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if they win, because I think Arsenal aren't performing well. They're scraping by, and you know they barely just got into the semifinal. They had a bad result in the Premier League, and I think City are sort of doing their thing. So I think that the pressure is on Arsenal, and I'm probably leaning towards. I won't be surprised. I mean, it's Pep, City. Pep's got the experience. I wouldn't be surprised if they beat them. I kind of feel like that's how it's gonna go, but anything could happen. Arsenal could turn up and win. City could bottle it. What about the transfers? United wanted all these top players and have signed no one yet. But we're not signing anybody, Natasha. The window isn't open. We're not going to sign anybody yet. The window isn't open. Nobody has signed a single player. It's not the time to sign. When the window opens, then we'll see what happens. But until the window opens, no signings are going to be announced. So but okay, listen. I do have to go though. Okay, so thank you guys for tuning in, and I appreciate everybody that smashed the like button. If you didn't hit the like button, if you could please do so on the way out, I greatly appreciate it. Okay, thank you to all the viewers. Thank you to the chatters. Thank you to anybody that was new that subscribed. Glad to have you here. It was good to be back. I missed you all. I apologize because, just nothing I could do. Schedule is a bit tight right now, and I don't have a lot of time to do as many shows as maybe I would like to do. But I appreciate that you guys, are always coming back to support when I do have an opportunity to do a show. So tomorrow, we would do Fridays, and Fridays, I always love the Friday shows because they're just chill. And they're always good, and it's the start of the weekend, and they're always jam-packed and filled with great discussion. But unfortunately, I won't be able to do it because it's just the schedule is not going to work out. I'll be at work by the time I get home from work. It's going to be way too late, so it doesn't line up. So we won't be able to stream tomorrow, and I believe Saturday I won't be able to make it either. So unless that changes, there's probably no Saturday, and I'm leaning on a Sunday, but could be no Sunday. If anything, then it would probably lead up to like Monday or Tuesday or something like that, whatever. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Those of you that are in the Discord, obviously keep you updated in the Discord. Those of you that are not in the Discord, I hope you guys saw my community post. I tried to keep you updated. Those don't work the best because I don't know how sometimes YouTube, I don't know if they make you see it or not. I don't know how many people get to see it. I can't actually see it, how many people see it. So hopefully you were able to see those things. And I'll try to do another one for the ones that aren't in the Discord and sort of keep you updated on what's the plan going forward. But we will see. We are playing Chelsea. It's big 6-pointer. It's a big big match because Villa are tied with us and Liverpool have gained a couple points and they're only 3 points off of us now. So The pressure is there, and we do need to get a result, and it is a big match, and we're away from home. The one thing though is that I believe Michael Carrick has done his time as a manager at United, caretaker included. From previous times, he's done well against Chelsea, so there is that. But I don't know. I mean, we need a big response, big bounce back from the last couple matches, especially the Leeds one and the Leeds result. Losing to Leeds at home at Old Trafford is never good. So we gotta turn up. We gotta get a response, and hopefully we do, because if we don't, it's gonna look it's not gonna look as positive, and it's gonna look a bit more bleak. Because I mean, if Villa win, okay, they're jumping us. All right, and it's sort of a must win, really. It's massively big because, listen, we could still get Champions League, and some people would be like, listen, we just won Champions League. But for me personally, we're in third. I would like for us to finish in third. As much as we possibly can, as high as we possibly can, as strong as a finish as we can. There's 6 matches left. We're in third now. It's in our hands. So I would like to finish third. I don't necessarily want to drop to 5th. Okay, yes, great. We still get the Champions League from the 5th, but I want to finish the season with Manchester United in 3rd place. When the table is done, I would like to say we finish 3rd and not 5th. So, Villa will jump us if we draw or lose and they win. And Liverpool will be, if we lose and they win, they'll be level with us on points. If we draw and they win, we'll be 1 point ahead of them. And yeah, so I mean, and then if we lose to Chelsea, they're on 48. They'll put them on 51, and that'll put them 4 points off of us. Which will make it even tighter. And then there's Brentford in 7, who's on 47, and Everton as well. And again, there's 6 matches left. After the Chelsea one, there'll be 5. Still 15 points on the board, and anything can happen. 15 points on the board, you can go mathematically from 3rd and drop into 8th. So, we got to take care of our business, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully we turn it around. And, everybody be good and stay safe. United will probably draw again next game. Well, I hope so. I hope they don't. Do you think City will win the Premier League? If they win versus Arsenal, then yes. They have to beat Arsenal. If they beat Arsenal, I think they'll end up winning the Premier League. I think Arsenal will choke it 100% then. So that's why I think this match is basically the be-all and end-all. So I think if City beat Arsenal, I think City will end up winning the league, and Arsenal will lose it. So yeah. Good night. Take care. See you next week. Yep. Good night. Be good. Stay safe, everybody. And we'll speak to each other soon. Most likely Sunday. So be on the lookout for Sunday. I'll try and give you guys an update. But thank you for all the support. Appreciate it. And everybody be good. And